thought we could talk about politics because there's nothing really going on in that department. What did you think when you saw this whole row of tech bros at the inauguration, front and center? What did you say to yourself when you witnessed that?
They make their own decisions.
You must have thought something, though, when you saw that.
No, I wouldn't have predicted it. And yet, when you have a new administration, they're going to wield a lot of authority, including over those companies. I'm not really in their game anymore. My focus is the foundation work. So, my mindset isn't quite, okay, let's defend the company.
Were you invited to the inauguration?
I bet I could have been there. I mean,
you could have finagled an invitation.
I think so, but it was fine. I had been there recently for Jimmy Carter's funeral.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. These same tech billionaires made major contributions to Trump's inauguration fund. Meta, Amazon, Google, your very own Microsoft all donated $1 million. Sam Altman and Tim Cook both reportedly also made $1 million donations personally. So did you donate anything to Donald Trump?
I didn't. I thought it looked like a well-funded inauguration.
You thought they don't need my money?
No, I saved it for HIV and malaria, polio eradication.
You did, though, have a 3-hour dinner with Donald Trump. I know, I suddenly feel like Mike Wallace here. I don't mean to. Anyway, Bill, I know you had dinner with Donald Trump. It was 3 hours long. It was at the end of December. You described that dinner as quite intriguing and wide-ranging, and that he showed a lot of interest in the issues that you brought up. He's been president for just over 2 weeks, and as you well know, there's a lot of concern about a whole slew of things he's doing, from firing inspectors general at a variety of agencies to stop corruption, et cetera, to the mass deportation of immigrants, to blaming the tragic airplane crash in D.C. on DEI. Given the conversation and given your experience having this dinner with him, are you surprised at some of the actions he's taken so quickly?
Well, things are moving fairly quickly. And, the area that I have real expertise in includes the foreign assistance, the USAID work, and
right.
Things like PEPFAR, where the U.S. government has been incredibly generous and saved tens of millions of lives. And so when I saw President Trump, I said, let's maintain this generosity and let's accelerate innovation. We don't have an HIV vaccine. We don't have an HIV cure. If some of the same things that were done in Project Warp Speed during the pandemic could be applied in those areas, the chance of getting great new tools is pretty exciting. And so I asked for his support in that and said that, in the meantime, we should continue to provide those medicines. What's happened so far in terms of personnel and grants may disrupt that. And so, I'll be a strong voice saying, even if you have to, change the name of the organization, maybe there's 10% of these programs you don't support, let's not take the incredible talent and impact and through very abrupt actions, largely by people who don't know this agency and may have just heard about, 1% here, went to something they don't like. So the next few months, I expect to provide the best advice I can because I think the U.S. should be proud of what it's done, starting with President Bush, but on a bipartisan basis up until now.
Well, will you call Elon Musk, because as the head of Doge or whatever that agency is, he's made moves, as you know, to shut down USAID. He says, quote, with the blessing of President Trump. And on his platform X, he called the government agency evil and a viper's nest of radical left Marxists who hate America, adding that it was time for it to die. We got so many questions, Bill, for you on Threads, my followers. And do you think that Elon Musk, or for that matter, Donald Trump, after you all had that 3-hour dinner and talked about the important work that organizations like this do you think anybody's going to listen?
I'm very hopeful that the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, who was in Africa and saw this great work, and President Trump will work to preserve the bulk of what's there, whether that named agency stays in place, whether every program does. But, an abrupt ending of that work would really put to the test, is it in the value of Americans to take 0.5% of the budget and keep tens of millions of Africans alive? Or have we sort of overnight decided that 0.5% shouldn't be spent that way? And it is a political question. I have a clear point of view. I know great people in that agency.
And it's not just Africa, by the way. It's all over the world.
It is. It's mostly the benefits of that work of USAID broadly are global. The HIV work, because of the nature of the epidemic, is about 80% in Africa. And the things USAID funds, I fund with billions of dollars. And I'm very careful to make sure that money is well spent. And so I think naively people hear the most random foreign aid things and think, okay, it's all like that. So I have a challenge to say to Americans, is this in your value system? And does it benefit our security or our moral example to keep these programs going? And I think people of both parties will find this a deeply moral and important thing to keep strong.
No comment on some of the other moves that Trump has made with inspectors general, kind of weaponizing DEI. I'm just curious how you're feeling as you're watching all of this unfold.
Well, in some ways, there's not that much that wasn't
predicted
during the campaign. And
although he distanced himself from Project 2025, and now according to Time magazine, 2/3 of the things he's done are actually in adherence with Project 2025.
There are people in the Democratic Party who will speak out on these things. I'm taking my fortune and trying to partner with governments, and the U.S. government being very key. So I'll mostly speak out about those areas where I have, real experience. I've gotten to visit the projects. I've gotten to meet the heroes, and I'm still, hoping we can strengthen rather than weaken those projects.
I want to ask you about RFK Jr. because obviously that's kind of in your lane. His nomination passed the Senate Finance Committee to advance to the floor. Bill, do you think he should be Secretary of Health and Human Services, given especially your incredible work with vaccines and given some of his past statements about not only their efficacy but about their safety?
I've only had one meeting with him, which actually goes back to the first Trump administration. And, it looks like he will get confirmed. He'll be in charge of some other parts of the government that do amazing work. We have the best drug regulator, the FDA. We have the best health research, the NIH. He'll be in charge of those things. And, so I hope to find common cause, including, working to have more vaccines. We We don't have a vaccine for TB or HIV or malaria. And there's some incredible work that even in the next 4 years, with luck, we'll get a number of those tools.
You have predicted that the chance of another pandemic in the next 4 years is between 10 and 15%, and that we're absolutely not prepared for it. I'm curious why you think global leaders are not taking this threat seriously enough. This has sort of been the case for pandemics for a while, even after COVID. It seems like we haven't put the infrastructure in place to deal with something like that happening in the future. And I'm curious why you think that's the case.
Well, there are countries like China and India that are actually doing some great things.
But
that
I guess
would
maybe
make,
then in
would
this
make
country.
them more ready for the next pandemic. The U.S. is kind of strange because we're still kind of arguing about
Where the virus came from?
No, well, that too. But even, okay, in the end, at the end of any emergency action like that, you realize, okay, now we've gone too far, and the remedy is greater than the benefit. And so, when should we have known that, and whose fault was that? The vaccine saved millions of lives, and President Trump was involved in accelerating the availability of that vaccine. Similar things should be standing by for the next pandemic. And so I'm hopeful that we'll sort of put that one behind us and come together around what preparation looks like. The world is more dependent on the U.S. doing a good job on this than it should be. It really, the depth of medical experience, the size of the American budget, and we need to do it on a cooperative basis. So with luck, we'll get our act together before the next one comes, because it could be far worse. That pandemic, killed less than 1%. Now that's millions of people, but you could have one that would be, greater than 10%.
Could you see yourself getting more involved in pandemic preparedness and kind of trying to galvanize all these people who have such a depth of knowledge but don't seem to be particularly coordinated?
Well, I wrote a book about how to avoid the next pandemic.
But I mean actually instituting sort of more of a plan, or is that not really that
if
interesting?
the government was putting together a group of people on that, either I or the deep experts at the Gates Foundation would love to be part of that. This is a multi-country thing because the pandemic is likely to start in either Asia or Africa. And the best thing with the pandemic is you stop it. You have functional health systems in Africa that see it, detect it, and don't let it go global. And that's partly an additional benefit besides what I think should justify it by itself, which is the moral idea of saving lives. And so yes, if the world gets serious about this, I think about it. I have great people. Outside of the pharma companies, we have the greatest depth of vaccine expertise. And so, whenever you want to think not just about the market incentives, but societal benefit, that's where we have a team that can make a contribution.